Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Thanks for joining me for Stay Free with Russell Brand. If you ain't got Rumble Premium yet, get Rumble Premium now. You get additional content from me, and it's a great show today. We're talking about the new pandemic in the UK, the flu one. They're forgetting, though, that they've already used this lie really recently of COVID and masks, and in their reporting, state-funded media like the BBC are tripping over their own feet in error. And we remind you, too, what happened in 2020 when they actually cancelled Christmas. Looking back, just with a half a decade of hindsight, the whole thing looks absurd. It's a real joy. We're talking too about the Ukraine and Zelensky and the way that people are beginning to recognise now that Ukraine was always a pretty corrupt country. That's not a unique attack on Ukraine, certainly not on Ukrainian people, but it's just the government of a country is not the same as the people of a country. Whether you're talking about Israel or the United Kingdom or the United States of America, generally speaking, governments are aligned with and enmeshed in sets of globalist interests and maybe things that are even darker than that. And the people are human beings and children of God and one world family. And Lord, I pray that one day we're able to return there. So we've got Zelensky, we've got COVID, and also the EU versus X. What a battle that's shaping up to be. All of these are deep dive episodes. Let us know what you think in the comment and chat. Sorry I keep spitting. I'm so excited about this thing. I think it's to do with this shirt also. Huh? What do you think? Let me know in the comments and chat. This stuff's pretty delicious. Mwah! Give it a go, baby. If you're watching us on Locals, hello, I love you. If you're watching us on Rumble Premium, I couldn't love you anymore. And if you're watching us on X or YouTube or any of those places, get on over to Rumble and join us there. And remember, if you haven't bought any Reborn stuff yet, buy some right now. Every dollar you spend gets you entered into a prize draw to win this beautiful but dangerous Jeep. And so here, without any further ado, here's the first of today's stories. Stay with us. When is the flu not the flu? When we need to control you. Super flu is back. Get in your house. Here's the mainstream media telling you to stop the spread.
It's a bit of a throwback, isn't it? We were used to wearing these a few years ago. Now this is the precaution being taken. Also, people are being told to make sure their hands are clean and that they're not bringing germs into the hospital. We're in the outpatients here.
That's just ridiculous. If in Germany they started dishing out yellow stars again and pink triangles, do you think people might go, wait a minute. Okay, if we want you to register for special benefits here in this place. You might go, we're not fucking doing that again. But when it comes to the mask, don't do it. Don't comply. They're not telling you the truth. Why don't you talk to the many doctors and nurses that regret taking the shot? Why don't you talk to the members of the military that have had to be readmitted after not taking the shot? I know they're not making the claim that this is directly analogous or identical to COVID, but it's similar enough to warrant your cynicism.
At Sunderland Royal, and you can see the campaign is very clear indeed. That's because in the past couple of weeks, they have seen the number of...
That lady just glitched. Was that just me?
They have seen the number of patients with flu here and at their sister...
With flu, not from flu.
Flu here and at their sister hospital tripled to 45 patients.
Where's the fucking people in that hospital, by the way? Have you been to an hospital lately? It's like that, just a bunch of screens, dark, depressing, weird. What's happening to our country? What's going on in the UK? Or UCK, as I call it, because it's...
That's kind of reflecting the national picture as well, where last week 1,700 patients across England were admitted and they were suffering from flu. That's a 50% rise on this time.
Well, why don't we have a ticker across the bottom of the screen telling us how many people are dying of flu? They've had time to put a Christmas tree up. My God, the UK is crazy and it's in serious trouble, but don't worry, it's going to be okay. We are going to organise some meaningful resistance, whether it's opposing the digital ID, or to getting rid of trial by jury, or any one of any facial recognition, potential war with Russia. I can do a longer list if you want to. It's totally corrupt. You need a new Oliver Cromwell. Not that Oliver Cromwell's behaviour to the Irish wasn't appalling. There's a revolution coming. Let's get into it.
Look, just because the number of patients rising has started earlier doesn't mean this flu season is going to end earlier. And NHS bosses are really quite concerned about the pressure that is going to be put on services, hence those figures coming out later. We also know that in Birmingham, 4 hospitals have declared a critical incident.
Get that mask off. There's no one in there. There's no one else in there. Don't do things for no reason. Don't do things for no reason. Stop bowing down and kowtowing to your false idols of the state. Stop worshipping at the awe of the BBC. You can't trust them. You cannot trust the legacy media. All of these institutions that I would have laid down my life for once, the BBC, the NHS, people did lay down their lives from. Our ancestors laid down their lives from. Not that long ago, less than 100 years ago, members of your family died so that you could have state-funded institutions like the BBC. They raise a tax, don't they, through licenses that's mandatory, so it's a tax. And the NHS, which your taxes pay for. These were beautiful ideas. These were good versions of secular saints. The NHS, a feminine saint that provides care and nurture and love and concern. What a beautiful idea. Totally corrupted, totally disrupted, total chaos, being utilised now to legitimise authoritarianism and government overreach. It's happened before, happened in 2019, and it's happening now. Don't trust them again.
Partly because of the number of flu cases putting those pressures on. And we know that up in the northeast, this isn't the only hospital that has introduced the mask wearing and, of course, that washing of hands that we have been talking about. So the message is, if you're coming into hospitals, please do wash your hands, wear the mask, because then you're going to stop the spread.
Why is the BBC doing that? Why is the BBC saying that? We've already had the signs.
And hopefully reduce the pressure that is being put on services. Look, we know that some people can present with mild symptoms, and bosses here are saying you may have mild symptoms, but if you pass it on to somebody who's vulnerable, that's going to possibly cause more.
Because, the old vulnerable technique, you see? Someone vulnerable. There's always these imaginary vulnerable people that the BBC and the government are protecting. You might be all right. You might be able to run your own life, run your own family, run your own community. You might be strong and connected to God. But what about vulnerable people? I'll tell you what. I'll tell you the last people I'm going to trust to look after the vulnerable. It's you lying, corrupt, filthy scum.
So, mask wearing, hand washing, and those figures coming out later today are going to give a true picture of what is going on, but everybody can do their bit to try to prevent the spread of flu, for now at least.
It's inevitable, really. We're all going to get flu. Yeah, flu. So, fucking what? Yeah, well, people will die. Yeah, well, not people will die. Everyone's going to die. Everyone's going to die. How about having some integrity while you're alive? It's not a personal attack on that lady, journalist, whatever she would like to be called. She's got fantastic hair, and when it comes to conditioner, I'd take her advice to the ends of the earth. But when it comes to masks, she's plainly lying, because we've already been on this roundabout. As the familiar health warnings of 2020 begin to dominate once more, fresh scandals rip through the institutions that shaped the pandemic years. So, are we finally seeing the cracks in a system whose hidden incentives may have steered a nation's fate? Or will history repeat herself again? The loudmouth, repetitive bitch. Schools across the UK are falling back into lockdown as a flu outbreak sweeps classrooms, and public health officials urge mask wearing, even though they admitted last time that masks don't work. I know what they'll say. They'll go, oh, well, masks don't work under these circumstances, but they work under these circumstances. Stop the spread, flatten the curve, take the spike, have a jab. It'll be the usual stuff. Public health officials urge mask wearing with the same familiar language that dominated the winter of 2020. Yet the timing's more alarming because three major revelations have erupted at once, tearing open the sealed vault of decisions that shaped the pandemic years. The stories breaking in 2025 are the very scandals that were dismissed as paranoia and misinformation or conspiracy in 2020. Let's get into it. First came the disclosures that England's chief medical officer pressured government ethics advisors to stop putting their concerns in writing. That's interesting. The Moral and Ethical Advisory Group, or MEAG, you can't trust MEAGs, was created to guide ministers through the most difficult trade-offs of the pandemic. Trade-offs? It was meant to ensure that policy never drifted into a moral void. That's the least you can do in it as a government. Are we in a moral void right now? Wait a minute. Wait. Is this a moral void that we've been living in? Yeah, it's a moral void because you killed God and replaced it with, well, Satan, but via dominion, property, profit, stuff like that. But as soon as MEAG raised concerns about lockdown harms, vaccine passports, and the rushed push to vaccinate children, it was pushed aside. Chris Whitty went as far as advising the group to stop putting its recommendations in writing. Don't write any of this down because it might look bad in a couple of years when everyone finds out we were lying. Who remembers the bit when Chris Whitty was jostled by youths? Those youths got pretty punishing sentences as well, as I recall. They just saw Chris Whitty, and this is when I sort of realised that I kind of love dumb culture, is because what happened is like Chris Whitty was like our chief medical officer, and he was like sort of like a bald, like scientist guy. He was not even as charismatic as someone like Fauci, right? He was sort of like a hello, and he looked a bit like he might have sort of an undercurrent of eczema, you know, them people. Well, they've not got eczema, but you could see that they could easily get it, right? He looked like that. And like these lads saw him in a park, like football lads. And because the culture's so stupid now, they just sort of treated him like a celebrity. Hey, Chris Whitty! They sort of like shook him around. It was very funny. It was awful because poor Chris Whitty is a human being. But it's also funny because the culture has used media and semiotics in such a trite and trivializing way, like i.e. everyone tried to turn Fauci into a sort of celebrity. Well, that's what people do. Like, you think I've not had to deal with stuff like that as a famous person, people getting like too fucking hands-on and aggressive. Crazy, man. Members reported feeling sidelined and effectively banned from discussing the pandemic while ministers pushed ahead with unprecedented restrictions. When the group prepared a memo stressing that vaccines for healthy children were invasive, irreversible, and may have long-term side effects. Yes, they were invasive. Yes, irreversible. Everything's irreversible, basically. And long-term side effects, bingo, baby, it was suppressed. A whistleblower said they were told to stop this. Could you stop this? Could you stop raising concerns? It's not like we have a primary duty to not be in a moral void. You shouldn't be in a moral void. Oh, man. MEAG meetings were cancelled when they raised concerns. At the moment when the nation most needed independent scrutiny, it was deliberately shut down. Let me know in the comments and chat why that would be. Why would you shut down independent scrutiny? Because guess what I was doing during the COVID pandemic? I was offering independent scrutiny. It was advised by experts in the same way that you are. Like, I was reading Robert Malone or Peter McCulloch or Jay Bhattacharya or Marty Makary or Robert Kennedy or other people that are subject to attack, even if they're in government at this point. And we were making our own independent assessments. And, you know, we followed the actual science, discourse analysis, clinical trial. And it turns out that we, that collective we, the anti-establishment dissidents, were right. And it turns out that if you do that, they will try and destroy you. So do pay attention. Make sure you mean it. Otherwise, you might not like it when they try and destroy you. Then came two bombshell headlines from legacy outlets that once dismissed skepticism as misinformation. The Atlantic. Yes, some children may have died from COVID shots, they now acknowledge. The Telegraph, who of course reported the stories, Russell Brand rapists, they now admit how COVID vaccines can cause heart damage. Articles like these would have been unimaginable in the media landscape of 2021 when even asking such questions invited smears, bans and professional destruction. Now they read like late confessions from institutions trying to outrun the truth while simultaneously telling you to believe in superflu. We've got the James Gunn version of superflu now. We've reimagined superflu. It's like a Guardians of the Galaxy COVID. It's a fun new COVID. But the most chilling report may be the one showing that 26 members of SAGE, the scientific advisory group whose modelling and counsel shaped every lockdown policy, get ready guys, failed to disclose more than $200 million in grants from the Wellcome Trust. Wellcome, if you didn't know, is one of the world's most powerful medical research funders with deep, let me emphasize that, deep ties to the pharmaceutical sector, and had publicly declared early in the pandemic that drugs, vaccines and rapid diagnostics were the only exit strategy. Many of the same SAGE voices that were urging the government towards that path were simultaneously receiving millions in funding from Wellcome. Funding the public was never, ever told about. 26 scientists in positions of immense influence shaping politics that affected every citizen, every child, while withholding financial relationships with the very sector that stood to profit from a pharmaceutical-first pandemic response. What a miracle. Pay attention if you're in the UK now that they're trying to get rid of jury trials, they're trying to introduce digital ID, they're trying to get you into a war with Russia. Be disobedient now. Against this backdrop, the flu surge feels almost symbolic, as if the boundary between past and present is collapsing. Yeah, it does feel like that, doesn't it? Like time itself is speeding up because the communication of information is so rapid. Think about it. At the advent of the Gutenberg press, the world changed so rapidly. People had access to example, to scripture in a variety of languages. It changed people's relationships with institutional religion. Now, everyone's talking all the time. That doesn't mean there's a lot of nonsense that gets said. Some of the stuff I say, of course, necessarily is nonsense. I'm wrong a bunch. But you can now aggregate information yourself. Take a little bit from over here, take a bit from over here. And as long as the results are, don't ever trust the media, don't ever trust the government, you won't go far wrong. During COVID, flu all but vanished. Do you remember that? Do you remember that they stopped talking about flu because they were using flu statistically to bolster the COVID numbers? It was overwhelmed and displaced by a single overwhelming diagnosis. Now, COVID has slipped into the background while flu resurges. They don't believe in COVID anymore, but they might believe in new super flu. Yes, let's try that. Have they traded places depending on what served institutional interest at the time? Or were the categories always more fluid than officials admitted? It can only be one. When systems encourage political outcomes rather than clinical clarity, even basic epidemiology becomes a shadow play, doesn't it? That's what's happening. We can't make this content without the support of our partners. Here's a message from one right now. Do you want to support me? No, I don't. Yes, you do. Support me and support Rumble Premium. You won't only be supporting me, you'll get additional access to Mug Club, that's Crowder's gig, Timcast, that's Tim Paul's racket, and Glenn Greenwald's additional content. Join us on Rumble Premium. We make content every single week through Rumble because Rumble support free speech. When I was under attack from the British government and the British media, Rumble stood firm. Yes, of course, there's crazy people on Rumble. There's crazy people everywhere. There's a crazy person living under this hat. That doesn't mean we shouldn't have the right to speak freely together. By supporting Rumble Premium, you're supporting me and content creators like me. You get additional content, and what I will say even more, drink down deep on the delicious irony in this one, you get an ad-free experience. If you want an ad-free experience of Rumble, get Rumble Premium. In the meantime, stay free. Here's Scott Gottlieb, but you could just call him Scottlieb, save yourself a syllable. A man who looks like a little boy out of the Munsters and talks like a person who works at the FDA only to go and get a job at Pfizer, because that's what he is.
They're systematically trying to dismantle components of the vaccine approval process and make sure vaccines won't be available. That's in fact what the memo was Friday, and they did it under the pretext of these tragic deaths, which I think is really inappropriate.
We use tragic deaths. Not you. Tragic deaths, right? Do you remember when people would die during COVID and they didn't have a vaccine? They would almost like to drag the corpse out of the coffin and fuck it on the desk of the news. Now, don't you misuse these tragic deaths. We're the ones that misuse tragic deaths. What are you going to use the next? The tragic death of Jesus Christ to say that death can be conquered if you obey certain edicts and laws? Oh, well, don't, because that's what we do.
These deaths in children, if they think there's a causal relationship between the COVID vaccine and those children's deaths, that warrants an exhaustive investigation.
Wonder what Scott Gottlieb does when he's not on the news telling you to take vaccines. He's a board member of Pfizer. Good. Okay, so let's just watch a bit more.
But they tried to slip in announcing that their re-adjudication of that data, which had previously been reviewed very exhaustively by the FDA, they tried to slip in this wholesale remaking of the vaccine approval process for vaccines that have nothing to do with the COVID vaccine.
So what do you do in your spare time? Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I'm just going to keep using that for context.
Remember, we even approved the HPV vaccine, which is on the cusp of ending cervical cancer on the basis of these immunobridging studies. This has been an important tool for FDA to get new vaccines on the market. I think what they want is no new vaccines on the market. And look, there's some people, I will give them credit, who have been very honest about that. I think the Secretary Kennedy has been very honest about his intentions. I think Prasad, not so much in implementing these policies, hasn't been transparent about the eventual goal of what he's trying to achieve here. But we're at a point right now where there's been such degradation at the FDA, I really worry the wheels are coming off that agency at a real critical time in the biotechnology industry. Look, the tariffs have been settled. Companies, big pharma companies now have visibility on their cash flows. They're getting back into doing M&A. That's putting a bid under the market. You're seeing the IPO market for biotechnology stocks reopen. You're seeing really stunning data readouts. And so this is really a renaissance period in biotechnology at a point in which we're trying to compete with China, which is really surging their investments in life sciences. And now you have a deliberate effort to degrade the agency. And there's been a lot of departures from that vaccine review division. There's going to be even more. They're going to be at a point where they can announce these policies, and there's literally going to be no one left to implement them at the agency.
Meanwhile, Big Pharma is not retreating. Former FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb, who now works for, where does he work? Oh, what it was when he left the FDA, the regulatory body that governs Big Pharma, he went, from now on, I just want to make sure that, children everywhere are helped. So I'm going to do this charity work at schools, man. I'm going to dedicate all my time to making sure that children with conditions like eczema or asthma nah, not really. He's working for Pfizer. Is already pushing back against reports linking vaccines to child deaths, claiming instead that the FDA is undermining critical components of the vaccine approval system. The conflict of interest is staggering. The defensiveness is yet more so. Taken together, these disclosures paint a picture far darker than incompetence. They suggest a pandemic response shaped by political pressure, undisclosed financial entanglements, strategic suppression of ethical concerns, and a media ecosystem that only now dares to admit what it once helped obscure. The timing's no coincidence. As public trust erodes, these revelations feel less like transparency and more like preemptive damage control. What was once dismissed as fringe concern is now breaking into mainstream coverage, not because institutions have grown more honest, but because the truth can no longer be fully contained. Let me know what you think about that in the comment and chat. The public was told to trust the science, yet the science was shaped by incentives they were never allowed to see. They were told decisions were guided by ethics, yet the ethics advisors were silenced when the confusions became inconvenient. And the people offering the recommendation had financial ties to the pharmaceutical industry. I'll tell you now, I'm following the science right now. Here's what I'm scientifically deducing. Corruption, hypocrisy, lies. Conclusion, revolution. Do you remember at school when you had to do science, you had to go method, aim, all that. We had to write down the little things. Well, plainly now, we are at peak corruption. Now, Britain is repeating old patterns at the very time where the public is waking up to how deeply those patterns were manipulated. Schools are closing again. Mask mandates are creeping back. And the institutions that shaped the last crisis are being exposed for suppressing critical information when it mattered most. Ho, 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 ho. Remember 2020, Christmas time, mistletoe and wine? Let's have a look at what happened in our country, the UK, in Christmas 2020. This is your old friends, the BBC.
Dramatic change of policy. Millions of people across England have been placed under stringent new coronavirus restrictions for the festive season. Boris Johnson made the announcement today after scientists said a mutation of COVID-19 was spreading rapidly.
The mutation, yeah. It's mutated, bloody thing. It's like a film where there's a mutation like that. X-Men. It's X-Men COVID.
In London, the southeast and east of England. The variant is said to be much more contagious, but doesn't cause more.
Look how he's talking to you. Look at how he's talking to you. For a minute, just watch and look at the tone. Listen, now, I'm not blaming the individual gentleman. I'm sure he's a delight. Although we have learned that, for example, Hugh Edwards, a very prominent BBC news broadcaster, has, I think, recently been convicted of pedophilia. But don't let that bother you.
Doesn't cause more serious illness. Wales and Scotland tonight have also tightened their coronavirus rules.
But the BBC hasn't tightened its paedophilia rules. We keep having a mysteriously high number of paedophiles working for us.
From midnight tonight, new Tier 4 restrictions come into force.
What they need is tiers for paedophiles working for them. Like, right, we're allowed this many paedophiles. Could we just have a couple more paedophiles? No, that's the absolute maximum. Maybe in some of your local news offices, you can sneak in a few extra paedophiles.
In London, the southeast and east of England, more than 17 million people are affected. The public is being asked to stay at home, and there will be no so-called Christmas bubbles for gatherings.
Have you forgotten how mad it was? There will be no Christmas bubbles for gathering. What the fuck are you talking about? Who are you? Who are you all? Well, you're going to have to be in a Christmas bubble. Well, hold on, what's Christmas about? Oh, well, what it was God came to earth in the form of a baby through the Immaculate Conception to prove that here on the carnal plane, you can achieve divinity and operate on the level of universal good. Thanks. So what do you want us to do? Get in a Christmas bubble. Whoa. And a lot of these people won't believe in that. A lot of them will go, you can't believe in Jesus? That's made up. Now get in your fucking Christmas bubble. But listen, if we're making stuff up, how about we make up something that empowers us, that believes that you are beautiful, that you're vital, that there are things that are more important than the appeasement and appeal of the senses, that there is glory. That all sounds good, but it might burst your Christmas bubble.
Get-togethers will be restricted to meeting one other person in an open public space.
That is the level of control that they're aiming at. It's brilliant to watch this again. It's brilliant. You can meet one person in a public place. All they have to do now they've established some principles. Now all they have to do is convince you that the conditions exist that legitimize it, i.e. a war with Russia, some sort of terrible financial crash. I don't know. My imagination is not as dark as theirs, and I've got a pretty dark imagination, baby. They'll think of something that legitimizes this happening again. That's what they'll do. They'll just keep thinking of it. Right. You've got to get in your Christmas bubble, get in your Easter cube, get in your Pentecost triangle, get into your satanic worship, state-funded, evil, nefarious systems. Put your hand up like this, bow down at the altar of Moloch. Merry, merry Satanmas.
Shops will close, as well as gyms, beauty salons and hairdressers.
Who decides what's non-essential business? Who decides?
For those living in tiers 1 to 3 in England...
See, bureaucracy. It's beautiful. They bureaucratised everything. Look at that coronavirus in the corner like a little sunshine. Look at that bit in the corner, not the corner of the square, the outer periphery of the circumference there, like a little bowling ball. That's the spike protein. The virus itself was a construct. The pandemic response was a construct. The reporting on it was a construct. The measures undertaken were a construct. You're living in a counterfeit reality. And the very people that tell you that Christ ain't real and it's a fairy story for children will tell you that it's time to get in your Christmas bubble and bow down at the altar of their peculiar bureaucracies. Do you detect the hypocrisy? Do you see that what they're creating is an illusory reality for you to inhabit?
Christmas bubble gatherings can only take place on Christmas Day.
They're trying to normalise the phrase Christmas bubbles.
Christmas plans have to be dropped, and a third of the population is back under limited lockdown in less than 2 hours.
Look at the level of concern and consternation that went into this period. Look at how they're talking. Now, think about you. You're a person. You live in the UK, right? Or wherever you live. How many people do you know that died of flat-out COVID that wasn't either comorbid, like super obese, heart conditions, or extremely old? We know in retrospect that excess deaths have increased in the subsequent period. More people are dying now than died during COVID. That whole time was full of deception and lies. You can prove it if you pay attention. Their primary technique to prevent you from making these realizations is to distract you and bombard you and bedazzle you continually. You are overstimulated. All they have to do to prevent you from awakening up to the revolutionary state that this would induce in the sanest, most rational person is bewilder and distract you the whole time. I thought you'd be able to say, look, I know all these people that died from COVID. Now, I know there's that wall opposite, peculiarly, the Houses of Parliament, where there's this spontaneous tribute to those that died of COVID, a graffiti wall of hearts for every person. Like, if you go through and investigate it, go through every single one and say, right, well, that person, how old were they? Did they have any other conditions? All right. Then ask yourself this. Is it worth giving up your freedom for? Is it worth giving up your freedom? What's a war? I mean, they're about to conscript you in the UK for a war against Russia. What are they going to say to you then? What are they going to say to you? Right, we're going to have a war with Russia. Okay, well, why? And for who benefits? Loads of questions, but okay, we're having a war with Russia. What do you want us to do again? What is it? We want you to go on, keep talking, sign up for, the army, and what might happen? Fight, and what might happen in the fight? Death. And why? Because there's something more important than life. And who decides what that is? We do. Interesting.
It is with a very heavy heart, I must tell you.
Your heart's probably heavy because you've got myocarditis because you kept getting those fucking vaccines, you moron.
We cannot continue with Christmas as planned. In England, those living in Tier 4 areas should not mix with anyone outside their own household at Christmas.
Their own household. Members of the actual government were having affairs with people from other households. They were putting their genitals in other people's bodies. That's minus distance.
Though support bubbles will remain in place.
Do you see how the language of emojis has invaded ordinary discourse? Hands, face, space. Repeat after me. Hands, face, space. Repeat after me. Into the internment camp. Clap along. Here's your digital ID. Eventually, they'll coach you into such rhythmic childishness, such a facsimile of innocence that you won't be able to think or identify reality. Look at the traffic lights. If it's red, stay inside. If it's amber, you can look out your window. If it's green, we're coming to your house to castrate you.
For those at particular risk of loneliness or isolation.
Everyone's at risk of loneliness and isolation. That's what a human being is. You are at risk of loneliness and isolation because you're in infinite space and you're being governed by the devil.
We have a particularly fast-moving...
Sir Patrick Vallance, how'd you get that knighthood, mate? Who give you that knighthood?
...problem with increased numbers in the area going to tier 4, but a generalised increase across the country.
The sort of combination of Boris Johnson's entitled certainty and the kind of rational academic confidence of that fella. We're getting tier 4. It's all made up. It's all made up. None of it was real. It was a pack of lies. Oh yeah, but didn't they do an inquiry? Yeah, in the inquiry, did they ask questions about Rishi Sunak's relationship with Moderna? Did they ask questions about Moderna's new subsequent vaccine contracts? Did they ask any questions about the inception, conception and manufacture of the virus itself? Did they ask questions about the way that deaths were logged and registered? Where's the data? In our conversation with Dr. John Campbell, he revealed that the UK government are refusing to release the statistics about the number of people that have died from vaccine injury. Why? To protect you. It's to protect you because of your anonymity. Oh, you're still helping me. Wow, you guys are going to help us right the way into the prison and right the way into the grave, aren't you?
On Wednesday, you told me and our viewers it would be inhuman to change the plans. And now that's exactly what you've done. Aren't the millions of people whose plans have just been torn up entitled to feel that you just left this too late?
As we, of course, bitterly regret the...
What about this? Listen, I've got an update for you. I'm the news now. Don't listen to them, don't trust them, and don't do what they tell you. And wait for the opportunity for that to happen and make sure you're ready for that. Just make sure that when they tell you stuff, just go, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to comply. You aren't in control of me. I have a direct relationship with God. I am matter infused by spirit somehow. Somehow I can, through my thoughts, control my cortex and my anatomy. And maybe one day we will be able to control more than that. I believe in glory. I believe in God. I believe in the resurrection of Christ Jesus. So if you want me to do something, you're going to have to kill me. Are you all right with that? Because I am. Here's the weather.
The changes that are necessary, but alas, when the facts change, you have to change your approach.
Hey, if you're watching us on YouTube, we're just going to be with you for a few more seconds. Click the link in the description. Get on over and enjoy the next story. We're talking about Ukraine, we're talking about Elon, we're talking about COVID. It's brilliant, it's revelatory, it's magnificent. Click the link, get off that globalist scam and into the sweet arms of Rumble, baby.
Professor Whitty, if someone is packing a bag right now, listening to or watching this, trying to leave the southeast by midnight tonight, what should they do?
My short answer would be, please unpack it at this stage.